All right, guys, how y'all doing out there? You guys see me? I am talking right now, Jonah. All right, guys. So today, what we're gonna do first, if you guys can all hit that like button and help out, that'd be great. So there's 7 of you guys on, so there should be 7 likes, right? All right. Let's see what we're first going to talk about today. We are going to talk about automatic stabilizers. Then we're going to talk about what we're going to do on Wednesday. And then after that, we will discuss the test, which is going to be on Friday. Okay. So, we don't have class on Friday. That's right. So, Good Friday, right? And then, or spring holiday, whatever. So I guess the test we can schedule for the following Monday, unless anybody has any objections to that. Okay. So our Unit 3 test is going to be on Monday, following the weekend, right? And so Friday we can do like a little review FRQ session. So I have some FRQs scheduled for you guys to go over. I'll put the FRQs in the comments, and then we will go over those. But I'd really like, when we go over the FRQs, I'd really like for you guys to use the comment section, right? You guys are doing that right now, which is awesome. Thank you guys for doing that. That way we can utilize that a little bit more during these classes. Okay. All right. So if you're following along, we're on topic 3.9, right, which is automatic stabilizers. Okay. All right. So 2 types of, or just kind of a review from Wednesday, right? And we have discretionary fiscal policy and we have non-discretionary fiscal policy, right? So discretionary fiscal policy is Congress creates a new bill. It's designed to change aggregate demands through spending and taxation, right? One problem is that, we have lags in our democratic process, right? Our bureaucracy. And then it takes time for Congress to act, right? So sometimes Congress tries to speed that up. I use the example of the Families First bill that they just passed, right? But there's still lag to that, right? Even lag with the IRS, right now, in that they are trying to process all the checks and get all the checks out to everybody. And so that's going to take some time. And this bill passed about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, right? So, so there's time for those things to happen, right? So, because of that, that's it's called a lag, right? So, so you have discretionary fiscal policy, then you have something called non-discretionary fiscal policy. And what non-discretionary fiscal policy is it's already in place. You don't have to do anything. It's there, set up already, right? And those things that are already set up for us are welfare, unemployment, and income tax. Now, the thing with unemployment that we have, right, is that the thing with unemployment is that, with this current situation, is that we're not designed to have this mass rush of unemployment, right? So because of that, Congress needed to act and increase the funding for unemployment, right? So that's kind of make it more broad for people that need unemployment, right? So if you're just joining us, just introduce yourself. We're just kind of going over automatic stabilizers, right? You guys are feel free to ask any questions or anything like that. And so we just talked about discretionary fiscal policy and we talked about non-discretionary fiscal policy, right? Do I think you need to take all your money out of the bank? No, actually, that is the last thing that you should do. Well, it's not the last thing you should do, but it's the last thing you should do if you have the economy in mind, right? Because if we all rushed out, grabbed our money, that would put the banks in kind of a bind, right? And we're going to see that in the next unit. About how banks lend out money, right? And banks still need to be lending out money, right? Now, of course, if you did that specifically and only you, it wouldn't really have, depending on how much money you have in the bank, right? It really wouldn't have that big of an effect. But if everybody in the city of El Paso, everybody in the state of Texas, everybody in the United Nation were to rush the banks and try to withdraw money, then that would be called a bank run. And so banks need money in their safe, and they need money to be able to create money, which we'll see next unit, right? But so yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's a good question to see if we should be if we should go out and get our money, right? Because you're scared, right? But you're gonna also see that the dollar bill is not, it has no value to it other than what we've assigned that value to the dollar bill. So if we all just kind of stopped believing in the dollar, then it would go away, right? I mean, we just kind of build a new currency, right? So I think right now, maybe cryptocurrency is like a good idea, but I'm not a financial guy, right? It's just teach you guys about economics. So, all right. So, let's go over some other ideas of how there's non-discretionary fiscal policy. So, think of it this way, right? There's different tax brackets for our country, right? So you've got, the lowest taxing, or wage earner pays 10% of their income. Next level is 12%, 22%, 24%, 32, 35, and then 37 is the highest tax percentage, right, that you would pay of your income. Now, so if you were making 37%, or if you're making over 600 grand or $600,000, you're going to get taxed 37%. So an automatic stabilizer is if you lose your job, or let's say you lose your job and then you're making almost $500,000 a year, and let's say you start working as an Instacart worker, right? Or you're working at Walmart, right? Or you're working at Sonic, or one of the jobs that you guys have, right? Well, you're not going to be earning that much, right? So your tax bracket's going to get dropped considerably, right? And so because of that, right, that's an automatic stabilizer, right? Because now you're paying less tax because you earn less money, right? There's nothing wrong about working at Sonic or Walmart or anything for you guys. Like, that's perfectly good jobs for you guys. And I'm sure those of you guys that are working, although it's hard to work, right, and it's not the best thing, you guys are learning quite a bit from it. So, I always admire students that are working, right? Because it's a tough gig to do school and then work, right? So, all right, so so that's one of the ways that the tax bracket that we have is an automatic stabilizer, right? And then also that funding, right, goes to pay for these automatic stabilizers too, right? That's the income that the government makes, right, is through taxes. Okay, all right. So the progressive U.S. Income tax system, that was the tax system that we have, right, is that as you earn more, as you're making more, you're going to get taxed more, right? Acts counter-cyclically to stabilize the economy. So when GDP is down, the tax burden on consumers is going to be low, so promoting consumption and increasing aggregate demand, right? And then so when GDP is up, more tax burden on consumers, so discouraging consumption and decreasing aggregate demand, right? And so the more progressive the tax system, the greater the economy's built-in stability, right? Now think about that again when we were talking about the business cycle, right? That when we're at a peak, right? When we're up at a peak, the government wants to apply the brakes. They want to slow GDP down, right? And right now, which we're going to be in is a trough, essentially a recession. The government's going to want to speed things back up to get back up to full employment. Now, how are they going to do that right now? Well, they're doing it through that Family First bill, right? Like they're sending everybody who paid taxes last year, you're all going to get a check, right? And so most of you guys live with your parents, right? So your parents will get your check, right? But hopefully they're not greedy and they share with you guys, right? So or give you your money. So I think if you're a wage earner, I think you'll be eligible for the $1,200. But I think most of you guys are going to be eligible for that $500 stimulus check, right? So it'll be a check written to probably the person that did your taxes in your family, right? Or you know what? Actually, I'm sorry that since you're claimed under your parents, you'll probably get that $500 check, right? So, but hopefully your parents share that money with you guys, right? So, all right, moving on. Okay, non-discretionary fiscal policy. Remember that discretionary fiscal policy is the automatic stabilizers, right? And so unemployment benefits and social service programs act countercyclically to stabilize the economy, right? So again, when we're looking at that business cycle, right, when GDP is down, right, so in that trough, right, unemployment is going to be high, right? So the more benefits will be paid out, right? So like right now, we're in a trough, right? So our GDP is going to be down considerably, right? And for some time, right? And so because of that, think about it, unemployment right now is very high, right? So because, because of everything that's happening. So with COVID-19. So this is gonna help increase aggregate demand, right? The unemployment benefits, because then instead of, think of it, if we didn't have unemployment benefits, people wouldn't be able to go out and spend money, right? So if they're not able to go out and spend money, then aggregate demand is going to drop further and further and further down, right? But because we have that stabilizer and they get that unemployment check, they're going to take that unemployment check and spend that unemployment check, right? So when GDP is up, right, unemployment is low, right? So now we're talking about a peak instead, right? So if you're in a peak, then less benefits are going to be paid out, right? There's not as many benefits being paid out because people are working, right? And so because of that, you'll see a drop in aggregate demands because of that as well. So, so that's another, unemployment benefits and social service programs. Okay. Now, so let's talk about this question. So what I want you guys to do is let's go ahead and pull out a sheet of paper, right? Hopefully, just minimize your PowerPoints if you're looking at those. Okay. I want you guys to draw me an ADAS model, all right? And I want it in a recessionary gap, okay? And I want the point to be at the intersection point of your ADAS. I want it to be at 600 and of the recession, and I want it to be at 1,000 billion, right? So 600 billion and then 1,000 billion for your long run aggregate supply curve. All right. I want you to draw that out, and then I want you to tell me what happens. How do we get out of that gap? Like how much government spending, or what non-discretionary fiscal policy would government need to use to close that gap? Now, one thing you need to know is the MPS and the MPC, right? Now the MPC is going to be 0.8. So if the MPC is 0.8, then what does that make the MPS? Right? It's going to make it, hopefully you came up with 0.2, right? Because you're going to get the full point. You're going to be one, both MPC plus MPS equals 1. Yes, good, John. Right? And so I want you guys to draw that out, and I want you guys to tell me what's going to be the amount that's going to need to be spent into our economy. All right. So go ahead and draw that out. I'm going to go ahead and grab my dry erase board and get that all set up for you guys while you guys are working on that. Right. All right. I think we've done this one already, but I just want to make sure that we understand, because this could be what this could be an FRQ for the AP test, right? Those of you guys that are taking the AP test, but it could be used. They may have you draw this out on your own, right? You're not gonna. I think you have to take a picture of what you're submitting, right? But and then you write out so you manipulate this and then write out what's going to happen, right? So first of all, let's see what we're going to do here, right? So let's go ahead and draw out this graph. Okay, so what you should have here, right, is on the what you should have here is on the vertical axis, you're going to have real price level, right? On the horizontal axis, you're going to have real GDP. Okay, you'll have your long run aggregate supply. I said to set that at 1,000 billion, right? This is set in billions. Okay, and then your intersection point of your ADAS is going to be at 600 billion. Okay, now we want to know how much to close that gap. Now, if the government were to come out and use non-discretionary fiscal policy, and they were to spend, let's say, 400 billion, well, that would push our ADAS way off, right? So we need to first figure out what the multiplier is, right? And so how do we figure out what the multiplier is, all right? So remember, it's going to be MPC over MPS, right? And that's real, it's like kind of crooked for you guys right now. And an easy way to kind of remember that is just that C comes before S in the alphabet, right? So that'll be in the numerator, and then S will be in the denominator, right? And so this is going to be 0.8 over 0.2. So that means that it is 4, right? Is our multiplier. So whatever the government spends, you multiply that times 4, and that's the effect that it'll have in the economy, right? So that is the taxing multiplier. What's the spending multiplier, Jonah? Yeah, that's right. And so it's not the spending multiplier that I'm talking about, it's taxing multiplier, right? Yeah, which is good, right? And so the taxing multiplier, since we're talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about non-discretionary fiscal policy, which is taxes, right? Which is Social Security payments and stuff like that. So we use something called the taxing multiplier. The taxing multiplier is MPC over MPS, right? And I think we discussed that last unit, did we? Or last video. I'm hoping we did. If we didn't, I'll cover it here at the end. But the taxing multiplier is just going to be one less than the spending multiplier, right? And then so no, thanks for catching that, Jonah. I was calling it the spending multiplier, but I was meaning the taxing multiplier. Now, there's three multipliers, right? There's the spending multiplier, there's the taxing multiplier, and then there's the transfer payment multiplier. And since this is, again, non-discretionary fiscal policy, because of that, it is called the transfer payment multiplier, right? Because these are all transfer payments, right? Social Security, welfare, all that stuff is transfer payments, okay? Remember, transfer payments are when the government redistributes wealth, right? And that is a transfer payment, okay? All right, so the taxing multiplier or the transfer multiplier, you equate it the same way, as MPC over MPS, okay? And so that's going to be 4, right? Because you're going to take 0.8, divide that by 0.2, that's going to give you 4. So whatever the government spends in transfer payments, that's going to give you, you're going to take that value and multiply it times 4, right? So Here, what value do we multiply times 4 to get from 600 billion to 1,000 billion? Well, you take 100 billion, right? Multiply that times 4, and that's going to give you 400 billion. And that's going to close this gap. And so, of course, what are we going to shift? We're going to shift our aggregate demand curve, right? So, one, we need to do two things. We need to set the new price level, right? And then you need to label your curves, right? Very important to label your curves so that way people know what's getting shifted, okay? All right, so there is that. Okay, so do I have any questions from you guys? Joe Cool 1818, you got any questions for us? The government would only, in this example here, the government would only spend 100 billion. And why would they spend 100 billion? Because you take that 100 billion, you multiply it times the multiplier, which is 4. That's 400 billion. So take 400 billion, add that to the 600 billion, and that's going to give you 1,000 billion, right? Okay. And so, all right, cool. Any other questions we had about this example or discretionary or non-discretionary fiscal policy? Any questions about the economy right now that you guys might have? Okay, well, you guys are kind of thinking scarcity. Well, Joe, cool. You can go and check out my playlist for the modules, and there's I think the first or second video, and that will explain scarcity to you. But that's unlimited wants with limited resources, right? So those of you guys that are in my class, you guys will be taking a test again on Monday. That test, what I would definitely do to prepare for that is know how to shift the long run aggregate supply curve, know what shifts the aggregate demand curve, what shifts the aggregate supply curve, knows what you can do to the two different types of spending for government, discretionary and non-discretionary. The taxing multiplier, all the multipliers, right? The taxing, transfer, and spending multiplier. Understanding that money multiplies in the economy would definitely be something I would look at. Let's see. Those are things that I would cover. Now on Wednesday, what we're going to do is we're going to cover some FRQs. I'll have the FRQs. I'll go ahead and create the video probably tomorrow. Create the video and then just put those FRQs that we're going to be covering. Put those in the comments section, and then you guys can go ahead and access those, print them out, and start working on them so that we can just kind of go over those, see if you guys have any questions as we cover them, right? And then any questions that you guys might have for the test, that's something else that we can cover, right? How's the coronavirus affecting the economy? Well, obviously it's affecting the economy because people aren't working, right? People aren't spending money. And because of that, that's not pushing aggregate demand, right? Keeping in mind that aggregate demand is G is C plus I plus G plus XN. So because of that, we're seeing a decrease in aggregate demand, pushing our aggregate demand curve down, pushing our which is affecting our GDP. On the business cycle, we'd be in a recession or in a recessionary gap, or in a ADAS model, we'd be in a recessionary gap. So because of that, it's obviously affecting the economy pretty bad. Probably as bad as 2008 is what I've seen from a lot of economists, or most definitely as bad as 2008. But some are even saying maybe as bad as close to the Great Depression, right? So, but we'll see. My students also will be posting a PowerPoint specifically talking about COVID-19 and how it affects, this class and concept that you guys have learned in this class. I've already sent it to a few of you guys. Not sure if you've had a chance to look at it. Jonah, Ryan, Bernie, have you guys had a chance to look at it? Maybe if you could comment on it, see if you guys liked it or not. If you haven't had a chance to go over it, whatever, just let me know. Any questions that you guys have for me? Joe Cool 1818. I don't know when we're gonna go back to school, right? But if you could do me a huge favor, if you just go to my my channel, right, and if you could subscribe, that'd be great, man. Also, if you guys are super bored, right, you guys know that I'm putting up those the remote learning workouts. I'm going to try to put some more up. I know a lot of people are asking me to put some more up there, so I'm going to try to move it to maybe doing one a day. Try to keep that schedule, but we'll see what happens. So I'll be putting one up here shortly. Cool. Joe Cool. Where do you go to school, Joe Cool? Where are you from, man? Jonah, where can you build muscle and shape? I don't know. You need a lot of help, man. Just kidding, buddy. No, I think, you can figure out wherever you figure out weights. Just try to, be creative with making weights and stuff like that. Cool, Joko. That's awesome that you're from Houston. Hey, Alyssa. Yeah. So, are you taking the AP test, Joko? And so, Alyssa, they haven't said that from the district quite yet, but that's like the rumor going around that you can use, or that we're gonna switch to pass-fail, right? Are you taking the AP test, Alyssa? Yeah, Jonah, just do the workouts. That'll help you build muscle, buddy. It's just body weight, but that's the best we can. So you're taking the AP test, yeah. So then I think what would be best is, I wouldn't worry about pass fail. That's not important. It's just you got to get ready for that AP test, right? And so you should be ready. They're going to give us I think it's like 2 extra weeks to get ready. So that'll be cool for us, right? And so we'll keep doing this and then practicing your FRQ skills. So, but I'm super confident that you'll pass the test. Ask the guys from last year. Ask Jonah. If you take my class serious, you'll pass the test for sure. Take my class serious and practice, right? Because that's essentially what you're going to do. I know this is a different method of how they're going to be testing you, but I'm pretty confident that we'll be all right. I actually think it's going to be easier than the because it's just gauging it just off FRQs. Any other questions? Joe Cool, if you want to share this with your, your colleagues or your other students, friends, whatever, please feel free to do so. We meet Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 2. Yeah, no, it's going to be open notes, right? It's going to be open. I think everything except for Google is what you can use. Open note, open text, whatever you guys want. So I think what you probably, just keep the notes that you've been taking in class. If you've just been writing down what's on the PowerPoints, that'll be like gold, right, for this. And then what we'll do is we'll probably, I'll before the test, what I'll do is I'll run a review session and I'll have you guys have all the graphs for each single scenario, right? So it's kind of, so you'll be prepared, like, okay, these are like the different graphs that could be asked, right? They're going to be pretty hard on cheating, right? So I imagine they're going to have you do a lockdown browser, and it's kind of like a Zoom conference where someone's going to be watching you take the test. Or something like that. I don't know, where they're able to see what you're doing. And they're going to have like where your responses will be checked like through a computer to see if your answers are similar to somebody else's. So they can check the how authentic to your writing the work is, right? No, there's going to be a lag, right? I mean, the good thing right now is that a lot of people are still making money. And so since people are still making money, they're holding that money. And so as soon as the economy opens back up, yes, people will start spending money. But of course, that's going to take some time, right? Like a lot of people have lost their jobs. And so because of that job loss, they're not making money, right? So they're the people that are going to really need that stimulus check, right? And to stay afloat. So, or bump into their savings, right? So, no, it's going to take some time before the economy gets back to up and running to the standard it was, at the beginning of the year. They're suggesting that we'll be in a negative GDP until 2021 December. So those are forecasts. A forecast from an economist I saw on Twitter. All right, guys, I see there's 10 of you guys on here. If you guys can all hit like, right? Let's get that number to 10, right? We're at 3. Jonah, hit like. And what other questions do you guys have for me? There we go. All right, guys. Well, again, Monday you guys have we'll have the test, okay? And Wednesday I'll see you guys, and make sure you guys are being safe, washing your hands. Hope everything's okay, and peace.